Rob Portman, the senator from the beautiful state of Ohio, whether he'd write off on that. What do you think, Senator?
Well, Neil, it's not the solution, obviously. It's about 3.6% of the cost of gas. I mean, we're all dying with these high gas prices. People who are commuting, people who are on fixed income. I talked to a trucker over the weekend who is paying $1,500 to fill up his 18-wheeler. So it's a really terrible punitive tax, inflation generally, and specifically gas tax. But this is not going to solve the problem.
So is that a no, Senator, that you would not vote for that?
I mean, I would take a look at it, but is the money going to come out of the Highway Trust Fund? So in other words, we're going to have fewer roads and bridges. We're the inflation is hitting there too, so we're having a tough time keeping up. And is it going to be for how long? And so if it's 3.6% of the cost of gas, that would help. But what would help a whole lot more is if we had more production of gas and oil. Oil obviously is the biggest part of gasoline, next refining, and then next it would be state taxes and the next federal taxes. So let's get the production up. That's where the real opportunity is here. And when this administration came in, as you know, they did everything possible to try to stifle the production of fossil fuels, including gas and oil. And that is now, unfortunately, beginning to cause big problems. That and increased demand that came out of the pandemic. So that's the biggest thing to do, is to tell these companies, look, we're not going to undercut you, as we did with the Keystone XL pipeline. Billions of dollars invested.
Well, they say they're not undercutting anyone, Senator. I had Jared Bernstein here, sir, who serves on the Council of Economic Advisors for President Biden, saying they're not doing anything to disrupt the companies, the oil companies. They're just getting fat on these profits, and they're not helping the American people out. So what do you think of that?
Well, first, I think they did a good job countering that, but I would say two things. One, yes, they are, because if you look at all of the issues, particularly permitting issues, they're giving explicit instructions to the agencies. And with regard to the so-called waters of the United States, which is something that the oil and gas companies care a lot about, the permitting is very difficult. Second, they are sending every indication, including by saying, no production on federal lands or waters, which is in litigation now, and obviously stopping Keystone XL, also stopping pipelines around the country, that look, if you make these investments, we may just pull the rug out from under you. So it's very difficult to get the American companies to make the investments we want them to make to be able to have these fossil fuels. And by the way, there will be a transition to a greener economy. There will be, but it's going to take time. You can't just immediately say we're going to stop fossil fuels and then have everybody's costs skyrocket. It's terrible for working families in Ohio. So yes, they have had a big impact on this. So let me switch
gears on that. I got it. You are among a bipartisan group of senators who supports this latest gun resolution, home crime resolution, whatever it's ultimately being called, Senator. And I think now it's actually 14 Republicans strong. So do you think this passes? Because, the NRA, as I'm sure you're not surprised, doesn't like this and says there's nothing in it that it likes. What do you make of that?
Well, we made a number of changes in it, as you know, John Cornyn taking the lead to address some of the concerns the NRA had and that I had and others had. So it actually includes a number of things that they wanted, including saying, as an example, with regard to the records of juveniles that will now be provided, which, by the way, everybody thinks should be in these records, that there will be a sunset to that. With regard to the so-called loophole right now for a boyfriend, if there's a sexual assault, that person should also be. So there's actually also an immediate revocation of a person's rights after 5 years, which is not in current law. So there's actually some things that they wanted that got in there that are pro-Second Amendment. But just in general, I think it will pass. To answer your question, I think there'll be more than 14. I don't know how many, 15, 16, 17 senators will probably support it in the end. Because it's common sense stuff. The biggest part of it, obviously, is mental health, which is what all of us have been saying on the Republican side for a long time, is that when you actually look at what's happening here, and unfortunately, almost every single one of these cases, certainly the mass shootings that are in these horrific mass shootings at the schools, it's a mental health issue, that this person is mentally ill, not getting the support that he needs, because it's usually a young male. And so that's huge in this legislation. That's the biggest part of it by far. Second is school safety. I think there's also a real agreement among Republicans. And then on this notion of ensuring that a juvenile's records are looked at, I think most Republicans are strongly in support of that. If you have, as was the case in this Texas situation, a juvenile record, so a criminal record in essence, a juvenile record that is sealed or expunged, that obviously should be taken into account when somebody
does that also
18,
mean
19, 20
there's a
years
separate
old.
issue that some of your Democratic colleagues wanted, Senator, to rein in the sale of of guns, assault weapons, or some of the more
there's
controversial
20
ones
things.
for under 21. That's not part of this, right?
No, that's not part of it. There's nothing like that in here. In fact, there are a whole slew of things, about 20 things that they asked for immediately, none of which are in here. But this will help, I think. It'll help because of the mental health reality of this situation, because of the school safety issue, which is real, and also because of guns getting in the hands of dangerous people that nobody would want, and having that information in the national background check system. So I think it's really common sense legislation. I do think it'll pass pretty easily. The question is, will all Democrats support it? They all want to go further. The House wants to go further. I hope they realize that although this isn't what they want, that this will be helpful to avoid further tragic instances like we just saw in Uvalde,
well, there
Texas.
must be something to it, Senator. Your point that both sides are not happy. That at least that shows that both sides have given and taken a little bit here. So we'll see what happens. I'd be remiss, Senator, because separately you've been looking at what's been happening in this economy, and obviously a lot of folks buffeted their retirement savings, have been really walloped. You're trying to do something about that. Could you update me with that?
Well, as I said earlier, inflation is the most punitive tax, and one of the things that's happened both in the pandemic and because of inflation is people have less disposable income because it's all going to pay for gas and pay for groceries and pay for clothes, so they aren't saving like they should be. So we happen to have a bipartisan, bicameral, kind of a very middle ground, I think very positive bill that helps people save more in their 401k, save more in their IRA, get more small businesses to get engaged in offering a plan. Only about half of them do. So that everybody has a chance to get some money into retirement so that they can have a retirement nest egg where they can have some peace of mind in retirement. And today we passed that out of committee. It's going to the floor, and it's great stuff. I also enjoyed Jay Powell's comments today in committee where he said, yes, this inflation started long before the invasion of Ukraine, which is absolutely true.
It has been going on a while. You don't have to be Republican or Democrat just to follow the numbers. All right, Rob Portman, thank you very much.